Hello, everybody. Today we have the honor of joining with us today, straight from Yerevan in Armenia, Dr. Marina Mchitarian Lazaridou. Uh, Dr. Mchitarian is an independent researcher and the founding president for the Action for Peace NGO, which is registered in Armenia. Dr. Mchitarian, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and I am pleased and it's honor for me to give this interview. And I would like to just emphasize that I'm of Armenian Greek origin. I was born to the Armenian father and Greek mother, and Lazaridou is my mother family name. And at the same time, I am blessed to have a dual citizenship, Armenian and Greek.
So you have both Armenian and Greek origin. Tell us a little bit about that. How was it growing up with those two backgrounds?
This is very interesting because two ancient nations, and I grew up in the multicultural environment because from one side, from the Armenian side, I am a grandchild of the Armenian genocide survivor, and from mother's side, this is Pontian Greeks. My mother was born in Armenia, and this is very interesting because from one side, the Armenian history, and from another side, Hellenism, the cultural heritage of ancient Greeks. So, and you see the results.
It's very interesting. It's just to be exposed to one culture in itself is a big honor, and you have a little bit of both, and both backgrounds have been through a lot of pain this last century, as I'm sure you know. Can you tell us a little bit, Dr. Mchitarian, about the history of the Hellenes, about the Greeks in Armenia? When did I know there are Pontians that live in Armenia? When did they get there? Tell us a little bit about the Greeks of Armenia, since you live there and are familiar with it.
Before turning to this topic, I would like to say shortly about my background and why I have started to make my research, to carry out my research in relation to Hellenes of Armenia. I graduated from Yerevan State University, theoretical physics, and then I did twice postdoctoral studies in archaeology in Ghent University of Belgium and Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And in 1997, I came back to Armenia, and unfortunately, I lost my both parents during 1 year. So in memory of my Greek mother, I traveled throughout Armenia, and I visited all Greek settlements of Armenia. I took about a few thousand photographs, and the Greeks of Armenia, they are descendants of the Pontian Greeks who moved to Armenia from Trabzon area, from Argyroupoli. This is Gümüşhane, the modern name. And they were invited to Armenia as the miners, because here in Armenia we have copper mines, we have silver mines, gold mines, and in Argyroupoli, in historical Pontos, they had silver mines. So as experts, as miners, they moved to Armenia. Already it was in the 18th century, so it's about more than 2 centuries. The Pontian Greeks, they live here. From another side, there are descendants of those who fled the Turkish area in the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, after the genocide in the Ottoman Empire, and they settled down here in Armenia. So the history of the Greek community of Armenia has a few centuries, and it's very rich history. So what I did, now I will tell how I used this research material, because I opened my first exhibition at the Greek embassy in Yerevan, and it was in 2009, and it is a permanent exhibition, and it is on display at the Greek embassy here in Yerevan. We have here Greek villages, the most, let's say, important village for me is the village where my mother was born. And the name is Madan. Now it calls in Armenian Lerna Hague, because in this village, in the adjacent areas, in the neighborhood, there are copper mines. And the Greeks, they founded here the first melting factory in Lazaridou. This is the north of Armenia. It is very interesting to note that when Greeks, the Pontian Greeks, moved to Armenia in the 18th century, it was a massive migration. But historically, the Hellenic Armenian cultural ties, they go through the depths of history. And if you see the main cathedral, the main Armenian cathedral at Mother See of Holy Etchmiadzin, this is the religious center of all Armenians here in Armenia. There are two bas-reliefs, Thekla and Pavlos, because before the creating of Armenian alphabet in 2004 AD, the Armenians, they used the Greek alphabet and the Assyrian alphabet. This is very interesting fact, and even some Armenians, they don't know about that, but the Hellenic influence is very obvious. For example, we have the Garni temple. It is 1st century AD, classic period, and it is Hellenic style temple.
We know that worldwide Armenians are always very prominent, just like the Greeks are. Are there any prominent Greeks in Armenia?
Yes, of course. I would like to continue to reply on your questions in two directions. Using the, let's say, historical facts, and from another side, proceeding from my, let's say, photographic research, path. What is interesting, my second exhibition was at the Greek Consulate General in New York in 2011, and it was an ethnographic exhibition. It was very interesting to introduce to the American, to Greek Americans, let's say that Hellenes of diaspora, how they live in Armenia and Yerevan. Very famous, in 1918, Armenians, they fight for their independence, and this is very important historic battle in the Armenian history. It calls Sardarabad battle for the independence of Armenia. It was 1918. And there was Greek captain, Vladimir Sakellari, who was one of the heroes of Sardarabad battle. And what is interesting, his son, Boris Sakellari, he was a composer, and he was a professor of the Yerevan State Conservatory. So he wrote a symphony in memory of his father, and it was dedicated to the heroes of Sardarabad battle. And 6 years ago, with the director of Sardarabad Museum, we did a joint event, and first time after the collapse of the former USSR. So after 30 years, this symphony was revived, and it was revived due to my efforts. The second famous Greek was very famous philosopher, George Gurdjieff, and he's very famous in the US as well, Yorgo Georgiades. He was born to the Greek father and Armenian mother, and there are many, of course, famous Greeks in nowadays, but these two, they are very prominent because they were living, let's say, 1 century ago, and they have their contribution to the world history and to the world culture.
That's very interesting. Let me ask you, Dr. Mchitarian, you are a doctor of philosophy, but you've turned to photography, documentary photography. Please tell us about your photography projects and how they're related to the Greeks of Armenia.
Thank you for this important question, because as I said, I am doctor of physics. My PhD was at the crossroad of physics, applied mathematics and mathematical physics, and then I turned to archaeology. But I was always trying to understand the nature, the theology, God. So all this brought me to photography and documentary photography, because my background is scientific, and it's not just photography. For example, and this is very important, one of my last documentary photography projects was dedicated to the 3 genocides, Armenian, Greek, and Assyrian. In 2015, the Armenians, they marked the Armenian Genocide Centennial, and I traveled throughout Armenia. Even I visited a few villages next to the Armenian-Turkish state border, and I talked to people. It was some kind of oral history project, let's say photographic imagery, plus their oral testimonies, because people, they shared their family survival stories, they shared some archival photos, and for Greek genocide, on the 19th of May every year, the Greeks of Armenia and the Armenian officials, they visit the Armenian Genocide Memorial, Tsitsernakabert, and about 10 years I was taking photos, so the Greek part was We Remember. The main idea of this genocide project was can memory trigger a genocide prevention? And as for Assyrians, they were in this project under the title Proud to be Christians. So it was a global project, and my second project, documentary photography project, was peace and photography, because for last 3 years I was working in the Netherlands and Cyprus in the field of protecting cultural heritage in zones of conflict and war. And I visited 5 or 6 times the Turkish occupied part of Cyprus, and when I witnessed the destructed cultural heritage, this gave me impulse to do something via photography. And peace and photography, it is a case study of the Turkish occupied part of Cyprus, and I included as well Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh. And my third documentary photography project is Hellenes of Armenia. Now I am working on the another project. It calls Nostos, War, Identity and Peace, dedicated to the women of Artsakh. Nostos, as you know, it is archaeology, ancient Greek, and it means return home.
That's extremely interesting, Dr. Mchitarian. Can I ask you, what do you see as the vision of your mission? What do you hope to accomplish after doing all these very important tasks?
Uh, After working in the field of protecting cultural heritage, I understood that as a physicist, as a person with so global and deep scientific background, I have to extend the borders of my research. And I was interested in the endangered Christians of the Middle East. That's why I returned to Armenia. I am based now in Armenia for a few years. I will be here. And I planned to visit Iraq. It was in January 2020. But unfortunately, due to this COVID-19, I decided to come to Armenia. I registered here my NGO, Action for Peace, and my co-founder is again Greek. He's professor of law, Greek general who lives in Armenia, Dr. Eduard Manevidis. So this is, we're acting in the field of human rights, humanitarian aid, and peace building. And my first project was Nostos, what I mentioned already, Nostos, War, Identity, and Peace. And before this war in Nagorno-Karabakh, I stayed there for 1 month. I interviewed about 50 ladies. And now I am working on this research. My vision is through these documentary photography projects, through my NGO, to understand, to try to help as much as I can to people who are in need. And because I was working for 15 years at Armenian Patriarchate in Armenia, this is Mother See of Holy Etchmiadzin. I was working there as deputy personnel manager because the first person was Archbishop. And from one side, there is, let's say, religious heritage. From another side is cultural heritage. And all this comes and intertwines in human beings. So I try to be useful to the humanity. This is maybe sounds like pathetically, but it's in my heart. So, and I'm always grateful to my mother because this comes from my Greek mother. And as noted, it was fairly noted by Abraham Lincoln that what I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother.
I'm sure she is extremely proud of you and
Yes, yes.
and everything that you have accomplished and you will accomplish.
And I would like just to add a very interesting one fact that my mother's 80th birthday, I celebrated in New York. 85th anniversary, I had a presentation at the Hellenic Cultural Center in London. It was my mother's 85th birth anniversary. And 19th, I want to have a presentation or photographic exhibit in Tokyo, in Japan.
That's incredible.
So
That's incredible.
Yeah, so this will be in 2 years. Because you know, the most important, and it comes from the Greek nature, it comes from the Greek soul. My mother always, she learned me to see in darkness, always try to focus on light. And it was noted fairly by Aristotle Onassis that it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. So my vision to see the light everywhere.
I hope that your vision of showing this light shines worldwide. We wish you all the best in your exhibitions. We will be following you with great pride, and please let us know of any upcoming events and any new projects that you will be doing. It was our honor to have you speak with us today, Dr. Mchitarian.
Thank you very much. And taking this opportunity, I would like to wish to all your listeners happy and blessed Thanksgiving. And sometimes we have to stop in our lives to say thank you to all those who make or made differences in our lives.
Thank you very much. Greetings from Boston.
Thank you and greetings from Yerevan. Peace.